My name is Lila Monroe. I am 30 years old, and I work in title insurance. I spend my days reviewing property records, verifying ownership chains, and catching discrepancies in deeds before they become disasters. I know what a forged signature looks like. I know how to trace the exact moment a document was altered. My brother Dylan Monroe knew none of that. Neither did my parents. That was their first mistake. My grandmother, Evelyn Monroe, passed away on a Tuesday in late October. She was 81, sharp until the very end, and she always smelled like lavender and strong coffee. When I was in middle school, she raised me for 3 years, while my parents were dealing with problems they never explained. Those 3 years shaped me more than anything else in my life. She taught me to keep records. She taught me that a handshake means nothing without paper behind it. She taught me that love without documentation is just a feeling someone can rewrite later. She left me her house. The deed had been transferred before she passed. It was handled by her personal attorney. Filed with the county. Clean and clear. 3 bedrooms. A small yard. A detached garage. And decades of memory sealed into every room. In the current market, it was worth roughly $400,000. My parents found that out at the estate reading. I watched my mother's face when the attorney read the clause. She had been sitting with her hands folded in her lap, wearing the expression she always wore when she expected to receive something, a kind of patient entitlement. When the attorney said my name, her hands unfolded. When he said the full transfer had already been completed, her jaw tightened. My father looked at my brother. My brother looked at me. I looked at my hands. 3 weeks later, my mother called and said they needed to talk. She used the word clarify like it was polite. She said Grandma always intended for the house to stay in the family, meaning all of them, not just me. She said it was not fair that I had gotten something so significant when Dylan was struggling. She said she hoped I would be reasonable. I told her I would think about it. I did not think about it. What I did was call my friend Janet Cruz at the county recorder's office and ask her to flag the property for any incoming filings. Then I called my attorney Marcus Reed and told him I thought something was coming. Marcus had known me for 4 years. He did not ask dramatic questions. He just said, "Send me everything you have." So I sent him everything. 2 months passed. I continued going to Sunday dinners. I brought food. I asked Dylan about his job search, which was not going well, and about his wife Cassie, who smiled at me the way a person smiles at someone they are about to outmaneuver. I asked my mother how her back was doing. I helped my father with his crossword puzzle. I was the same Lila on the surface. Underneath the surface, I was documenting everything. The dinner where my mother mentioned a real estate contact she had made. The evening Dylan talked about how the market was hot right now and it would be a shame to let an asset like that sit there. The text my mother sent at 11:30 on a Wednesday that said, "We found a solution that works for everyone. Can you come by Saturday?" I screenshot it. I saved it to 2 places. I did not go on Saturday. I said I had work. What I had was a phone call from Janet. Someone had submitted a quitclaim deed to the county recorder's office. The property was my grandmother's house. The deed listed Dylan as a co-owner with me. Signed with what was supposed to be my signature. Notarized by someone named Ronald Finch. Dated 6 weeks after my grandmother passed. I had not signed anything. I had never heard of Ronald Finch. I sat in my car in a coffee shop parking lot for 11 minutes after that call. I did not cry. I didn't even shake. I just felt the exact weight of what they had done settle into place. They forged my signature on a legal property document. That is not a family disagreement. That is a felony. That is fraud. That is identity theft tied to a real estate instrument, which carries its own set of statutes. And I knew every one of them because I had literally written training materials about them for my company. I called Marcus. He said the word I was thinking, quietly, without drama. Then he said, "Do not touch anything. Do not confront anyone. Let me work." I said, "I know. I've been waiting for this." Before I tell you what happened next, make a prediction. Do you think my family tried to guilt me into staying quiet? Or did they think they could bully me into accepting it? Comment guilt if you think they tried to shame me. Or comment bully if you think they tried to pressure me. The thing about forging a real estate document is that it leaves marks everywhere. The notary has a journal. The recorder's office has timestamps. The ink composition on the signature can be tested. And in my case, the forged signature was submitted while I was at a conference in another city. I was checked into a hotel under my name. I had keycard entry logs showing exactly where I was. I had photos, receipts, a name badge with a barcode. I had not planned any of it as a trap. I simply lived carefully and kept records, the way my grandmother taught me. But once Marcus started pulling the threads, it looked like I had orchestrated a masterclass. I let it look that way. Marcus found Ronald Finch within a week. Finch was a notary who operated out of a shipping store 2 towns over. When Marcus's investigator spoke with him, Finch admitted a woman brought the document in and said her sister was not available in person, but had pre-signed. Finch claimed it was a standard family transfer situation. He had not verified identity properly. He was cooperative, terrified, and suddenly very interested in providing a written statement. The woman Finch described matched Cassie. I continued going to Sunday dinners. I brought pasta salad. I asked Dylan if he had thought any more about renewing his certification. He said he had been too busy. I said that made sense. Cassie asked about my work, and I said things were interesting right now, which was true. My mother asked, very carefully, if I had looked into the property situation any further. I said I was letting Marcus handle the details. She smiled and said that sounded very sensible. I smiled back. I was aware, in that moment, of the exact parallel between my mother's expression and what I imagined a person looks like, right before they realize a trapdoor has opened beneath them. But she did not know that yet. So I just asked her if she wanted more pasta salad. Marcus sent a letter on a Thursday. Certified mail. Return receipt. 1 copy to my parents' house and 1 to Dylan's apartment. It outlined the existence of a fraudulently filed quitclaim deed, the notary's statement, the hotel records from my conference, the county timestamps showing the filing occurred while I was hundreds of miles away, and a forensic document analysis of the signature. The report compared the forgery to multiple samples of my real signature and noted several distinct structural deviations. The letter stated I was prepared to refer the matter to the county district attorney. It stated I had already been in contact with the state financial crimes unit regarding the identity theft component. It stated that if Dylan and Cassie wished to discuss an alternative resolution, they had 14 days to respond through counsel. It also stated, very specifically, that any attempt to contact me directly rather than through Marcus would be treated as witness tampering. My phone rang 17 times that evening. I let it go to voicemail every time. My mother. My father. Dylan. My mother again. A number I didn't recognize that turned out to be Dylan calling from Cassie's phone. I made tea. I read a book. I went to sleep at a reasonable hour. They retained an attorney 9 days later. His name was Peter Lang. And Marcus told me afterward that Peter called sounding like a man who had just been handed a folder he did not expect, and was trying to figure out how to put it back down. Peter explained his clients believed the document was a routine family matter. He claimed there was no intent to circumvent legal process. He offered that his clients were willing to have the deed reversed and expunged. Marcus told him reversal was the minimum, not the resolution. A meeting was scheduled. Conference room at Marcus's office. 10 in the morning on a Friday. My parents, Dylan, Cassie, their attorney Peter, me, and Marcus. I wore a gray blazer. I brought a notepad I had no intention of writing on. I arrived 7 minutes early. I poured myself water and sat with my hands flat on the table. They arrived together. All 4 of them. My mother looked like she hadn't slept. My father looked like a man who had finally understood the size of something for the first time. Dylan sat down and did not look at me. Cassie sat beside him and stared at her phone until Peter told her to put it away. Peter opened by saying his clients wished to express regret for the misunderstanding. Marcus didn't even blink. Let's define misunderstanding for the record. Peter tried again. He said the filing had been an error in judgment, made under the assumption the family had a shared understanding of the property's intended use. Marcus slid a folder across the table. Inside was Finch's signed statement, my hotel records, the forensic signature analysis, and a printed page from the state criminal statutes listing the relevant charges with sentencing ranges highlighted. Peter looked at the folder. He looked at Marcus. Then he looked at his clients like he was meeting them for the first time. Cassie went very still, not ashamed, calculating, recomputing her odds. Marcus said, "My client has chosen not to refer this matter to the district attorney at this time. However, that decision is contingent on conditions being met in full." Peter asked what conditions. Marcus laid them out, one by one. The fraudulent deed would be reversed immediately, with all costs paid by Dylan and Cassie, a notarized letter of acknowledgement, signed by both of them, would be placed in the property file stating that Lila Monroe is the sole owner, that no claims by any family member are valid, and that the acknowledgement is made freely and without duress. Dylan and Cassie would have no further contact with any county recorder's office regarding this property or any property in my name. And finally, my parents would sign a separate acknowledgement that they had knowledge of the intent to file the fraudulent deed. Marcus would hold that document but not file it unless further action became necessary. My father started to protest. We did not know what they were going to do. Marcus's voice stayed calm. "Your phone records tell a different story. You should speak with Peter before you make any more statements in this room." My father stopped talking. My mother turned to look at me for the first time since they walked in. Her expression wasn't guilt. I don't think she has the architecture for guilt the way most people do. It was the look of someone who believed they were holding a winning hand and just watched the cards flip. "Lila," she said, "we are your family." "I know," I said. "We were trying to make sure things stayed in the family," she said. "The house was already in the family," I said. "It was in my name. Peter can explain how property rights work if that part is unclear." My mother looked at Peter. Peter did not offer to explain property rights. The conditions were accepted, all of them. Peter asked for 48 hours to prepare paperwork. Marcus said 24. Peter said he would do his best. Every document was signed by the following morning. The quitclaim deed was reversed and expunged from county records by the end of the business week. The acknowledgement letters were notarized, scanned, and stored in a digital file Marcus keeps with the same care I keep my own records. I had spoken with the Financial Crimes Unit before the meeting, and after the acknowledgements came through, I called back and gave them an update. They told me the decision to pursue charges was mine and that the documentation I provided was sufficient if I chose to proceed. I told them I would be in touch if the situation changed. It has not changed. Now be honest. If you were me, what would you do after they admitted enough to reverse the deed? Comment forgive if you would let it end there. Or comment charge if you would still press criminal charges to make sure it never happens again. What I think about more often is a conversation I had with my grandmother 3 years before she passed. We were sitting on the porch of the house that is now legally, unambiguously mine. She told me about a dispute her own mother faced over land decades earlier. Someone in the family tried to rewrite the story of who owned what. Her mother lost because she didn't keep paperwork. My grandmother said, "People always rewrite the story in their favor when they think no one is watching. The only thing that stops them is evidence they cannot explain away." Then she handed me a folder. Inside was every document related to the house, the original purchase, every tax record, every deed transfer, her will, and a handwritten note in her own neat script that said, "This house belongs to Lila, and I have made certain that fact is bulletproof." I had that folder in my bag the morning of the meeting. I did not take it out. I didn't need to. But I wanted it with me anyway. The way you carry something that keeps you steady when people try to make the floor move. The floor wasn't moving. I had checked. Dylan and Cassie moved to another city 4 months after the meeting. I heard it through a cousin. Not from my parents. My parents and I still see each other on holidays. And the conversations are careful and surface level in the way they become when everyone knows what happened. But no one is going to say it again. My father asked me once over Christmas dinner whether I thought things would ever go back to normal between us. I said, "I think this is the new normal. Dad." He nodded like that was the answer he expected. My mother passed the sweet potatoes and did not say anything. I live in the house now. I repainted 2 bedrooms and left one exactly as it was when my grandmother used it. I kept her coffee mug on the shelf where she always kept it. On Sunday mornings, when I sit on that porch, I can almost smell lavender again. I still keep meticulous records. I still flag anything unusual in property files. I still call Janet when something feels off. And I've learned something most people don't learn until it costs them. The people who try to take what belongs to you are rarely strangers. They're usually people who have watched you long enough to believe they understand your limits. They mistake your patience for passivity. They decide that because you didn't react the first time, or the fifth time, you have no reaction left. They don't account for the possibility that you were simply waiting until the reaction was worth something. They don't account for the woman who knows exactly what a forged signature looks like, who has a friend at the recorder's office, who has hotel logs and a conference badge with timestamps, and who has an attorney who doesn't ask unnecessary questions. Most of all, they don't account for the fact that my grandmother trained me for this without ever calling it training. She just taught me to respect paper, because paper is what stands up when emotions fold. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I didn't show up at their door with accusations they could dismiss. I just kept the records. And when the time came, the records spoke for themselves. If you want more real stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next one will hit even harder.